Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Global. We'll get to the top stories from India and the region. I am Tanvi Taneja. And for news from the rest of the world, I'm joined by my colleague in London, Ollie Barrett. Happy New Year, Ollie.
Afternoon, Tanvi. It's 11:30 a.m. here in London, 12:30 p.m. across Central Europe. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, we'll take you live to Colombo, get the latest from the Middle East amid fears of further escalation there, and a report from an affected hospital in London as doctors strike again. First, the headlines.
Big blow to China. Sri Lanka imposes one-year port ban on Chinese research vessels, says will not permit them to operate within exclusive economic zone or dock at its ports. US-Britain report, Houthis firing missiles in Red Sea. No damage reported. The United Nations Security Council likely to meet today to discuss attacks in the Red Sea. Japan begins twin probes into Tuesday's rare Tokyo runaway collision. That toll from massive earthquakes on New Year's Day rises to 64. And junior doctors in England begin a 6-day walkout over pay, the longest strike in the 75-year history of the state-run National Health Service. Sri Lanka has notified India that it will not permit any Chinese research ship to operate within the exclusive economic zone or dock at its ports for a year. This after India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi urged Sri Lanka's President Ranil Wickremesinghe to respect India's strategic and security concerns. The declared moratorium was conveyed to India through diplomatic channels last week. It implies that Sri Lanka would not approve the Chinese scientific research ships to carry out deep water exploration in the southern Indian Ocean from 5th of January to the month of May. In the past, Chinese research ships, hydrographic vessels and ballistic missile trackers have reached the Indian Ocean region for surveys and research purposes. And for more on the story, we're now joined by DD India's Dr. Ahmed Faruki with us from Colombo. How significant is the moratorium declared by Sri Lanka, and how significant is India's diplomatic success in the matter, Faruki?
Good evening, Tanvi. Yes, this is a major diplomatic victory for India. Primarily speaking, you see, India has had several times India has raised the concern with regard to the arrival of Chinese research vessels in the Indian Ocean region. However, when the Sri Lanka President Ranil Wickremesinghe had gone to India last year in July, met the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister had conveyed the India's concerns in a very, very serious manner, and that had been taken into cognizance. We also were told by Sri Lankan leadership that on several occasions that they have had a special standardized operating procedure which has been put in place to consider such requests of any other countries whenever they are placed for a visit to the Indian Ocean region. However, now this comes as a major victory for Indian diplomatic efforts, whereby a full 1 year would be provided for as moratorium, whereby Chinese research vessels will not be allowed to enter the exclusive economic zone of Sri Lanka in the Indian Ocean region, as well as docking at the ports. This is something which shows India's neighborhood first policy coming up in a successful manner in the immediate neighborhood in general, and Sri Lanka in particular. Tanvi.
Okay. Dr. Faruki, what does the moratorium say about the state and direction of India-Sri Lanka relations, both current and future?
Tanvi, you know, the India-Sri Lanka relations have been on a positive side over the last few years. I must say that the neighborhood first policy has played a major role in this regard. Over the last 7-8 years, in fact, during the entire period of the current government, over the last 9 to 10 years, in fact, what we have seen is that the relations have gone from strength to strength. There have been several developmental projects that India has executed in Sri Lanka. Not just that, during the crisis when Sri Lanka went through the economic crisis last year and the year before, India came to the rescue of Sri Lanka by providing humanitarian assistance of $4 billion at a time when no other country looked towards Sri Lanka. That speaks volumes of the kind of relations that both countries enjoy. Not just that, India had also given the financing assurances to IMF before any other country, before any other country even had thought of it. We did not wait for anyone, and India went ahead to give financing assurances, and thereby IMF could release the bailout package to Sri Lanka, which happened in March last year. That speaks volumes with regard to the kind of collaborations that India and Sri Lanka have had. In addition to that, we also have been aware that India has had tremendous number of projects that are in the social sector, in healthcare, in education, in housing, that have been benefiting people, that is both Sinhalese as well as the Tamils, the Indian origin Tamils also, who live in the plantation sector. So what I see is that in the current era, the strength has gone further beyond what we have seen over the last few years. And in future, what I see is that the relations have much more that they can achieve and they will achieve, is what is anticipated. Tanvi.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Ahmed Faruki, for giving us those updates from Colombo. On to the Israel-Hamas conflict now. Israeli forces have hit Hamas in Gaza Strip and told civilians to evacuate their camp in the north of the Palestinian enclave after the deputy head of Hamas was killed in Beirut, Lebanon. Senior Hamas official Saleh al-Arore has been killed in an Israeli drone strike. Israel has not denied or confirmed the killing of Saleh al-Arore during the drone strike. However, military spokesperson Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari said that soldiers were at a high state of readiness and were ready for any situation. Now, the United Nations Security Council is likely to meet on Wednesday to discuss the situation in the Red Sea. France's ambassador to the UN said that there is a repetition of violations and military actions in the Red Sea area.
It's very likely that the Council will meet on the issue soon. So we will confirm this, but I think the situation is bad. There is a repetition of violations and military actions in this area. And of course, we cannot leave it like that. We need to take action.
Next, we head to Europe now, where junior doctors in England are staging another 6-day walkout to demand better pay in the face of soaring inflation there. My colleague Ollie Barrett is in London. He gives us more on this and other stories making headlines around the world. Ollie, this strike couldn't have come at a worse time, the peak of winter season.
It is, as you say, Tanvi, almost always the most difficult time of year for the NHS here, and junior doctors in England are carrying out what would be the longest strike in the NHS's history, assuming it runs its full planned path. The 6-day strike, which started a few hours ago now, comes after the British Medical Association abandoned negotiations with the government, who have been offering a pay rise of around 8 to 10%. The union says there would need to be a 35% improvement in pay to cover the impact of inflation going back a decade. Junior doctors make up around half of all doctors working in hospitals in England, which means that their absence does add pressure to healthcare provision. DD India's Julia Chapman joins me now from St Thomas's Hospital in London. Julia, what impact exactly do we expect these strikes to have on services over the next few days?
Undoubtedly, it is going to be a significant one at hospitals across the country. We are seeing tens of thousands of junior doctors walking out on strike, and we are seeing the repercussions to routine appointments in their thousands. The last strike in December saw 90,000 appointments delayed. That was a 3-day junior doctor strike. This one is set to be twice as long, and we are likely to see twice as many appointments cancelled. Over the course of the past year, there have been a number of different strikes from different parts of the healthcare service, including nurses, including healthcare consultants, the more senior doctors. in the health service, and that has led to about 1.2 million appointments being delayed or cancelled over that period. So lots of challenges being faced by the NHS here. Most accident and emergency departments are still operational, but there is at least one hospital in the southwest of England that has closed theirs because of this strike, diverting patients to a nearby facility. And there is an agreement in place between the union and the health service that in the case of a major incident, there could be an arrangement for doctors to leave the picket line and go back to their jobs.
And Julia, is there any sign at all of the two sides being close to an agreement which would end this long-running dispute?
They are looking very far apart indeed. We are hearing from officials from the BMA here today who have been saying that they don't see any progress in these negotiations. They are calling for a 35% pay rise, as you say, although they say that doesn't have to be implemented immediately. That could be a gradual rise, but they are trying to address what they say has been over a decade of real terms pay cuts, putting immense pressure on junior doctors. Now, of course, last year there was an offer from the government. They did already receive an 8.8% pay rise. There was an additional 3% offered by the government that was rejected by the union. Now, other parts of the health service have settled their disputes. We've seen nurses ending their strikes. Consultants are putting an offer to their members at the moment to vote on. So they've paused their strike action as well. But this long-running dispute with the junior doctors so far showing no signs of resolution.
Julia Chapman, thank you. The European Union has added Russia's Alrosa, the world's biggest diamond producer, to its sanctions list. Alrosa's CEO, Pavel Alexeyevich Marentiev, has also been targeted as part of the 12th package of sanctions, in line with the EU's diamond ban since February of 2022. The EU's measures are in coordination with the group of 7 countries which announced a similar ban in December 2023. Russia and Ukraine continue to exchange missile fire after Russian air defences intercepted Ukrainian missiles aimed at the border city of Belgorod and the Crimean Peninsula on Wednesday. This comes after Russia carried out its biggest aerial bombardment since the start of the war on Friday. DD India's Alex Kadier reports.
Russian authorities say they've intercepted Ukrainian missiles aimed at the city of Belgorod near the border with Ukraine and in the Kremlin-occupied Crimean Peninsula. They say around a dozen missiles were fired but reported no casualties or injuries. This salvo is the latest in a recent escalation of Russia's invasion of the country, with Kremlin forces firing more than 300 missiles and 200 drones in 5 days, according to Ukrainian officials. On Tuesday alone, Ukraine shot down 10 hypersonic ballistic missiles targeting Ukrainian cities from Russia. Kyiv and Kharkiv were both targeted, with around 5 civilians reported dead and 135 injured. In the Russian city of Belgorod, 1 was killed and 5 injured in a Ukrainian strike. And the exchange of bombing continues. Explosions were heard overnight in Sevastopol, the largest city in occupied Crimea, where a missile was shot down over the port, according to local authorities. This recent escalation by Russia and the Ukrainian retaliation comes as Western support for Kyiv remains uncertain. The United States sent the last of its support to the country a week ago, with $50 billion still being held up by Republicans in Congress. Here in the EU, meanwhile, leaders will gather in the start of February, hoping to break the deadlock in negotiations over a $60 billion package of support for Ukraine, which was vetoed by Hungary in December. Ukraine's top military commander, General Zaluzhny, thanked his country's allies for their support, but insisted more equipment was needed to safeguard the future of his country in the face of an invasion with no end in sight. Alex Kadier in Brussels reporting for DD India.
Well, Ukraine's two largest cities were attacked by Russian missiles that killed 5 people and injured more than 100. The Kremlin's forces targeted the capital Kiev and the Kharkiv region. The Russian Defense Ministry says Russian air defense forces shot down 17 Alder-tree rockets launched by Ukraine over Belgorod. And in addition, the Russian army says it launched cluster strikes on military-industrial facilities in Kiev and surrounding areas, intercepted some Ukrainian drones and resisted multiple offensives by the Ukrainian army in multiple directions. Egypt is looking forward to building up its economic relations with the BRICS group after joining the bloc of developing nations earlier this month. 5 new nations, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, were included in the bloc this month that initially comprised Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa. Egyptian analysts say the accession will bring a boost to Egypt's economy that is being affected by the ongoing conflicts in Ukraine and in neighbouring Gaza. The United States will reopen some southern border crossings on Thursday that have been closed as a result of the record number of migrants reaching the country. Tighter enforcement by Mexico and a holiday lull led to lower numbers of illegal entries over the past days. Operations will resume at an international bridge in Eagle Pass in the US state of Texas, 2 crossings in Arizona and another near San Diego in the state of California. US agents recorded nearly 250,000 illegal crossings along the country's southern border in December. New York City officials have accused the Texas governor of being a bully who's trying to destabilize cities. At his first press conference of 2024, New York City Mayor Eric Adams said Greg Abbott is not on the side of right.
We're going to win because we're on the side of right. We're on the side of right, that human beings should not be treated in an inhumane manner. And so he's not on the side of right. Our country has always been a country of immigrants, a country of rules and regulations, and we will utilize those rules and regulations to stop what he's doing to cities in America. New York is a city where we fight bullies.
Meanwhile, migrants in Mexico are waiting to receive travel permits that will allow them to reach the border with the United States. Activist Luis Garcia says the permit will allow 4,000 migrants to move freely through Mexico for a year. Most of the migrants boarding buses departed the city of Tapachula on the 24th of December in a caravan organised by Garcia to demand travel permits from Mexican authorities. The latest in a series of caravans of migrants and asylum seekers, many with small children, is slowly walking across southern Mexico, heading towards the US border. And with that, back to you in the studio in New Delhi, Tanvi.
Thank you very much, Ollie. Ollie Barrett joining us all from London. You're watching DD India Global, still to come on the show. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds a roadshow on day 2 of his visit to Lakshadweep, launches a submarine optical fibre cable project, among others. And a simple fingerprint test now could check for breast cancer, eventually replacing the mammogram, according to researchers at a UK university. Welcome back. You're watching DD India Global. I am Tanvi Taneja. On to Japan now. The country's transport authorities have launched the full-scale investigation into the cause of a collision of Japan Airlines passenger plane with a Coast Guard aircraft while landing at the Tokyo's Haneda airport on Tuesday. All 379 passengers and crew managed to evacuate the commercial plane before it was engulfed in flames. 5 of the 6 crew on the Coast Guard plane died. It was Japan's second disaster in 2 days after a magnitude 7.6 earthquake hit the country's Ishikawa region on Monday. The death toll from this massive earthquake rose to 64 on Wednesday. DD India's Chris Gilbert has more from Tokyo.
Well, the Japan Transport Safety Board is heading the investigation into exactly what happened. They're being joined by experts from the UK and from France. They're looking into the runway safety systems and processes in place at Haneda Airport and why the Coast Guard plane was on the tarmac at the same time the Japan Airlines passenger plane was landing. Japan Airlines says it was a normal landing procedure and they had received permission to land. This does seem to be backed up. NHK is reporting in Japan by voice recording from the control tower that it had indeed received permission to land. Experts are saying that there should be a lot of evidence available to figure out what exactly went wrong, including the black box, which has been retrieved from the Coast Guard plane. There's the physical remains of the planes, of course, as well as radar data and witness reports. A lot of focus is going to be given to the instructions given to each plane. NHK is also reporting that the Coast Guard is saying that it was given permission for its plane to proceed onto the tarmac, while the control tower is saying that it was in fact given directions to stop short. It was heading to the earthquake-struck Ishikawa region of Japan to provide aid to people who are badly needing it. Chris Gilbert in Tokyo reporting for DD India.
Meanwhile, Pope Francis expressed deep sadness and offered prayers and condolences for the quake victims on Wednesday. The Pope assured everyone affected by this Japanese disaster of his heartfelt solidarity, spiritual closeness and prayers, especially for the dead. On to the Indian Ocean region now. Former Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan, has been charged with contempt of the Electoral Commission on Wednesday. Imran Khan's lawyer made the announcement with a post on social media platform X. The Election Commission of Pakistan initiated contempt proceedings against Khan and other former leaders of his party, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. Back to India. On day 2 of his visit to Lakshadweep, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated and dedicated to the nation development projects worth $140 million, including a submarine optical fiber cable project, a drinking water supply scheme and a battery-backed solar power project. During a public rally in Kavaratti, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that the Kochi-Lakshadweep Island submarine optical fiber connection project will provide 10 times higher internet speed to the people of Lakshadweep.
साल 2020 में आपको मैंने गारंटी दी थी कि 1000 दिन में आपको तेज इंटरनेट की सुविधा पहुंच जाएगी। आज कोच्चि लक्षद्वीप सबमरीन ऑप्टिकल फाइबर प्रोजेक्ट का लोकार्पण हो गया है। अब लक्षद्वीप में भी 100 गुना अधिक स्पीड से इंटरनेट चल पाएगा।
India's outreach campaign, the Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra, is being undertaken across the country with the aim to inform people about the government's welfare measures by ensuring that their benefits reach their targeted beneficiaries in a time-bound manner. The yatra has arrived the districts of Raigad in the central Indian state of Chhattisgarh. The local communities responded to it with great enthusiasm and active engagement. On this occasion, several beneficiaries shared their progressive stories under the segment Meri Kahani, Meri Zubani. And now we take a look at what else is happening across the world. Multiple public pianos were set on the streets of South China's Shenzhen city. The pianos were set to provide opportunities for ordinary piano lovers to enjoy themselves and pursue their music dream in public spaces. Several blind people who work as piano tuners are also regular visitors to this shared pianos. The Sho Dang people in Vietnam's Dak Lak province are celebrating fresh harvest with the ritual of the new rice ceremony. During the ceremony, villagers express gratitude to the gods, praying for a bountiful harvest, abundant rice and maize, productive animals, prosperity and happiness. And researchers at England's Sheffield Hallam University have found out that a fingerprint test could check for breast cancer, and it could eventually replace the mammogram. This move could increase the number of tests carried out and eventually save more lives. And a zoo in South Korea gave a glimpse of new baby panda twins on Wednesday before their official debut to the zoo visitors. The twin cubs, Rui Bao and Hui Bao, marked their 6-month birth anniversary. They will be presented to the zoo visitors from Thursday as the youngest members of the panda family. That's all in this edition of DD India Global. Do join us for another edition of the show at 7:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, and Instagram. You can also find us online at ddindia.co.in. We will be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I am Tanvi Taneja. From all of us here in New Delhi, thank you for watching.